for many people, it's the goal to be able to practice the ability of staying focused or concentrated for 90 minutes, and it's really just doomed to go wrong because it's not possible to do it.
Hello guys, and welcome to a new episode of the Gloves On podcast. We're your host Alexandernsbrems, and your co-host Marcus is here as always. And today we have a new guest, Henrik Hjarsbæk. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Henrik Hjarsbæk, also called HH Mentality, is a Danish mental performance coach, and he has a lot of great players out there. And today we're going to talk about staying focused for 90 minutes. So you've talked about it before. We have talked about it before, but we want to break it down more. So how can you stay focused for 90 plus minutes? And let's start small and then break it down.
Okay. It's actually a very, very good question. So I'll start small and say you cannot stay focused in 90 minutes. And this is a very short answer, but to follow up on this, I would like to ask you and Marcus if you have ever tried to stay focused for, let's say, 15 minutes in a row. Maybe you have, but what about 30 minutes and 60 minutes and 90 minutes? Have you ever tried it, and how did you achieve it? So that's a question for you guys.
Yeah, if I start, it's always been my kind of issue to stay focused for so long, because your mind is kind of unconsciously wandering off at times during a game. I would say also, especially as a goalkeeper, where you're not switched on maybe all the time. So earlier I've been a lot more unfocused and my mind wandered off, and it still does it. And for me, it's about catching myself and my brain wandering off and getting back into the focus of the game. And so, yeah, I don't think I've ever been focused for full 90 minutes or even 15 minutes, if we say that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. But for many people, it's the goal to be able to practice the ability of staying focused or concentrated for 90 minutes. And it's really just doomed to go wrong because it's not possible to do it. But correctly, as you say, the mind will always wander, and especially when you're not activated, as you can be as a goalkeeper. But probably you have tried for 40 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever to be activated all the time. And if you activate all the time, you probably also have a very sharp focus, and then you're not limited by a focus who has been wandering. So the key is actually just is maybe a simple word to use, but it is to learn yourself to notice when you start deviating from your attentional and your focus. And that is actually going to be your trigger point for, like, now I have a focus which has wandered off to some irrelevant stuff for my performance mindset. And when you have that ability to notice these kind of things, because most people do not actually have that ability, because it's just what it is. And we catch a thought here saying that, it was not my fault with this first goal, or maybe it was my fault. And then you start going into an introspection, having the focus on yourself and your thoughts and trying to analyze yourself out of the situation. But this is not a great focus for performing your best. The focus can be in one place at a time. It can be in the present, which is very, very good. It can also be in the future, where you can, like, okay, if I perform well this game, maybe I'll be elected for the first team, I'll have a better contract. But it can also, as it is in a goalkeeper's match, be focused on the past, which is what happened 10, 20, 30 minutes ago. And that is really not achievable or good to achieve that kind of focus.
Really, really interesting and great notes. And I hope you listeners out there, you will take notes or at least think about it during this podcast or after. So taking it back, Marcus, do you have an example or something with the focus for how long or what you do, or you tried something where you lost focus?
Yeah, so I was thinking the reason why we picked this topic is mainly because of our position on the field. Obviously, a game is 90 minutes, so the main purpose is to stay focused for these 90 minutes. And as goalkeepers, we know that it can depend from game to game. One game you can play a better team, and there can be a lot to do. But you can also play games where you're the better team, and your team will be dominant throughout the game, and you won't have as much to do. So it really depends. Also, if you take it back to practice, if you do small-sided games, us goalkeepers get activated much more, and we can stay focused for at least 30 minutes within these small-sided games, because we need to communicate with the defense, we need to talk, we need to do small passes, just also the saves within the game. But when we talk about a full-size game on a big pitch, and also for 90 minutes, I would say it's impossible to, maybe not impossible, but I haven't experienced myself to stay focused for 90 minutes due to not being activated all the time.
Yeah, it makes sense for me, and the problem is for many goalkeepers and players and athletes in other sports arenas, if you have a focus or a goal that I need to be 100% focused in 90 minutes, you are 100% sure going to fail. And when you're going to fail in this one, you kind of tend to like think this is not good enough, I'm not doing what I should do, and then you start beating yourself up. And that's a very, very bad thing, because you will always lose this kind of game, because the whole premises in staying focused for 90 minutes will always go wrong. So instead of beating yourself up about it, you need to understand that this is very, very natural. And the only thing it's saying about you is that you have a mind that's functioning very, very well, because you can detect and see a lot of things in your attention. And this is just very normal. And this is just for you to say that my mind just wandered. That's very great. And that's maybe not the best, but what can I do about it right now? If I'm not doing anything about it actively, then your mind will start wandering, start thinking about what should I eat later, have a date later. I shouldn't have done this 3 days ago. I should not have taken that Coke or I should have drinking a Diet Coke instead. Maybe I didn't sleep well enough because I had this blood sugar in my bloodstream. You can think about so many kind of things, and nothing is wrong about it. Nothing is wrong with you. You just need to think that this is how I am. Don't beat yourself up about it, but then put your effort in refocusing on what matters and what is relevant for your performance.
Yeah, and talking about refocusing and getting back to it, you have mentioned before in your own podcast something called deliberate attention training. So that is about getting to know yourself and how you can get back to your attention. So can you talk us through that? What are some small exercises you could do as a goalkeeper?
Yeah, I think it's just, as you say, it's the deliberate. So you practice the ability to stay focused in the present moment without, or when you are noticing whatever comes to your mind. And when you are noticing in, for example, a guided body scan and meditation, attentional focus training, guided visualization, whatever it is, sitting, listening, and noticing your breath, your breathing, you will have 20, 30, 40 thoughts, and you have 200 stimuli coming to your brain, and that is all great. Your task is just here to notice what is going on without catching the thought. It's just like I wrote an example of, because your attention span and your attention, your focus is always hijackable. It can always be hijacked. So I can't remember if it's like 2 years ago in the Champions League final with Tottenham and Liverpool, and you see this woman running, naked woman running onto the street with a sign saying something I can't remember, but you cannot unsee this. And if you don't have the ability to just notice what is going on and actively refocus on what matters in your performance, it's going to be terrible for you. But this is just an example that you cannot unsee it. And if you're on the way into the pitch and some of the fans from your team or the opposing team is shouting, "You're shit, you're a lousy goalkeeper," well, you cannot unhear it, and you cannot stop yourself from thinking about it. That's just how the brain works. But your focus will then stay on, what should I do now? Because I cannot get away from this, but I can actually put my attention where it really matters. And that is what you actually are practicing when you just notice what is going on. It's very, very simple, and thus also very, very hard for athletes and competitive athletes to do, because bigger, better, and stronger, you need to achieve more, you need to feel something is happening. And that's actually the opposite. You need to let go in this situation and just be with the fucking task that you're doing. And that is focusing on your breath, your tension in the muscle, the biceps, the pectoralis, whatever it is. And when you've been doing that for 20 seconds, your thought will wander. And you'll start thinking about, oh, maybe this is a stupid exercise, or, oh my God, I am doing this terrible. I shouldn't have been thinking about this for the last 2 minutes. Yeah, it's fine, but you can still refocus again. And the goal in deliberate attentional training is just that the more times you notice your thought has deviated, the better it is. So if your thoughts and mind are deviating for like 20 times, it's fine. It's not a catastrophe. It's just fine. Then you have 20 options of refocusing. And that is exactly what you need in a game as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, and what are some things that you can do when you catch yourself and your mind wandering off in a game? I can tell what I do. If I catch myself think about, what I usually think about is, hey, I've played a really good game. I'm going to tell my mom that I did this and this and this, and we had a clean sheet, and then boom, 2 minutes later, concede a goal. But now that I've learned this, what I do when I catch my mind wandering off is that I refocus, I do some self-talk. I have some self-talk cues saying like, dominate every situation, focus on yourself, blah, 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 these things. Is that something that you would advise goalkeepers to do, or what are some cues for keepers to do when you catch yourself thinking of something else during a game?
First of all, there's a lot of exercises and strategies. It is primarily like a coping strategy, this one, and whatever works for the person or for the goalkeeper is fine. If something is working to reactivate you and refocus you on the game, it's great. You should definitely continue doing it. For me, some of the goalkeepers I've been working with, it is a coping strategy that the first step is just doing a registration work to see when your focus is deviating and getting lost. And when you've been doing this kind of mental training with registration work for like 4, 6, 8 weeks, you have a pretty good idea that this is exactly what my hurdle is, that I'm going to tell my mom about this, or that I'm going to have a new contract, whatever. But this is your moment now. If you noticed it and work with that for like on a daily basis for 8 weeks, I'm pretty sure that you're going to have the ability to refocus immediately when it happens in the next game. Further, for me, it's like you don't need to be a commentator, but you need to engage yourself in the perception of the game. You have the ball, the ball position is 80-20 for your team, and so you're not going to be challenged a lot as a goalkeeper, so you're not activated. But then you need to activate yourself, and that can be with some self-talk. It can also be with some physical movements. I see a lot of goalkeepers taking small sprints, jumping up with high knees or clapping their hands, and that is very, very fine. But for me, it really is about focusing your attention on what matters. Maybe you cannot scream so loud that you can scream anything for the striker or the winger so they can hear it because of the audience, but just doing it activates yourself. And the minute you're activated, you have a very, very small likability or chance of not getting into a focus. So just doing something that can activate you is actually one of the best things to do. And whatever that is, I think you can do many things, and we can maybe talk a little bit about it. But I think the most important thing is that you also know that this coping strategy is not to eliminate that you will not lose your focus again. It's not to do that you don't feel that you are cold, or that you are slow, or that you're not flexible in your body, that you're not ready. It's not to do that, but it's just to refocus your attention on something that matters. But then it'll come again that you lose your focus. And then this thoughts about telling your mother, whatever it is, it will still pop up again. And then many goalkeepers have this normal intuition saying, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work to clap my hands. It doesn't work to scream to communicate to my defenders. No, but what is work? What should it do? Should it eliminate your thoughts and your feelings and your mind-wandering thoughts? Because it cannot do that, but it can still activate you in the game. So it is just listing like practical things that is in your control. And what is always in your control, you can start what is not in your control. What is not in your control is your thoughts and your feelings, to have confidence, to not have confidence, and your bodily sensations. You cannot control these kind of things during the match. You can always try to do it by doing some breathing exercise or whatever, or self-talk to try and manipulate or convert your thoughts into something positive. But still, when you do that, Alexander, it can be fine, but you're still having focus on something else than the present moment and the game. But what you can always control yourself is always your behavior, your attitude, and your concrete actions in the present moment. So do something about those three objects instead of focusing on the mental side, which is thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations, because you will lose the attention for something that's not helpful for your performance.
So to point it out exactly is that you can, in order to overcome that you can't stay focused for 90 minutes, is to first of all accept it, and then afterwards work with it. Because as you mentioned, it's just to really highlight it, is that it's impossible to stay focused for 90 minutes, right? So if you think you can do that, you're just disappointed within yourself if you can't. But if you then instead see it in another way, and you accept that it's not possible for me to stay focused for 90 minutes, and then instead work on staying focused as much as possible because you accepted that you can't stay focused for 90 minutes, then you really can increase and perform better within your focus.
I would say that's very true, and at least you have a better ability of performing better when you do this. And there's a few things, because focus is also like when you have a big game, and you probably have finals, both of you, relegation games and very important matches. If you tell a person or player that you don't need to be anxious, you don't need to be nervous about this game, you can't think negatively, and you just need to be relaxed and stay calm. And that is probably some of the three worst advices you can give, because what happens when you play the game? You're feeling anxiety, you start to think negatively, and you're not calm. So you have 3 out of 3 options, and you fail in all of them. It's a very, very bad start for you, because you can easily just be realistic. I'm going to have negative thoughts. It's normal for me. I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to lose my thoughts. I'm going to have some anxiety, because this is very, very important for me. It's a very big game. Everybody gets sensation of being nervous in a big game. So don't beat yourself up about something that is 100% sure going to happen. But the two things that you said, Marcus, is actually true. About the first step is accepting it. And somebody say, yeah, I try to accept that I'm nervous or I have negative thoughts, but are you really accepting it? Because if you're trying to beat yourself up, if you're trying to convert negative thoughts to positive, if you're trying to manipulate your thoughts, you're not accepting it. When you accept it, you are performing in the present moment while having negative thoughts and deviating focus, but not paying attention to it. Just let it be. You have to perform while it's there, not without it. Your best game is not performed without anxiety, without thoughts. It's performed while you have it. So that is accepting it, not just saying to myself, well, I accept I'm beating myself up right now, I'm accepting that I don't feel well. It's not accepting. Accepting is just being with it and focusing on something else. And the second thing that you said, Marcus, is that you have to work with it. And that is actually the second step of it, to commit to something that makes sense for you. Who do you want to be as a person? Who do you want to be as an athlete, as a goalkeeper? I want to be brave. I want to be enthusiastic. I want to be present. Okay, what concrete actions can you do to live up to these small goals you have of being present moment minded, or being brave in your communication or whatever it is? And then you need to commit to these actions. And that is where you need to work with it, to use your words. And that is the second part of it. So accept it as the first one. Second part is to work with it in concrete actions, doing what you need to do, because all the actions you do, but also all the actions you don't do, that is actually what is making you as an athlete, as an identity of the athlete. So if you kind of like you drop 2 balls, you're behind 2-0, you can start not communicating, you can start not going out in the field and trying to punch the ball away, but that becomes your identity. That is what you're being assessed by, not what you're thinking of. So all the actions you do is 100% sure making up the person you're going to be in the future. So when you say you need to work with it at that point, it is having concrete actions, as we talked about before, and then trying your best to live up to these actions. It's not to say that every time you lose your focus, you feel smaller as a person because you conceded a goal. It's not to say you need to do these 3 actions every time, otherwise it's not good. No. It's just, if you do 1 action, it's fine. If you do 5 actions, it's also very fine. It's just up to you. You have this game plan on the side that this is what I need to do when I lose my focus and I'm not in my performance mindset, because it makes me more likely to go into my flow state again, where I'm great and I don't think about anything. I'm just performing in the present moment.
Yeah. So talking about, you just mentioned game plan. That's something that I often have. I have a kind of a game plan of how I can come back to my focus, but also because a lot of people might have heard this or learned this before, but the mind forgets, and you have to be reminded of what you have to do in certain situations when you lose focus. So just listening to this can be something, and I've listened to this and read a lot about sports psychology and so on, but I still forget. So when you mentioned this, I just get reminded of what to do in a game, and then in a month I probably have to be reminded again. So that's why I've made a game plan. I have it on my phone, just in my notes, saying these things that I have to do in a game. And is that something that you would recommend people having, kind of a game plan?
Yeah. And before going to this game plan, you said, Alexander, that the mind forgets. And when you're in a very pressured state of mind, or in a pressured situation in an exam, or doing a date, or at the dentist, or in a soccer match, your mind forgets, especially when you're pressured and you're emotionally driven. And that's what everybody is. So you conceded 2 goals. The feelings are emotionally is thoughts and feelings, and your feelings are, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, I don't feel big, I actually feel small, and the thoughts are negative. And these are drivers for your behaviors. You're not gonna go out and be the best of you and communicate like a insane goalkeeper who's just in control, who's like a wall. You're gonna do the opposite, because you are gonna let these emotional drivers dictate your behavior. That's how it is for normal people. And it's very easy when you catch the penalty or whatever in the beginning of the game, because you feel confident, you feel big, you feel strong, you feel like a wall. And then you have these communication skills, you have the ability on the line, you do all these kind of things. But if you can talk about what mental strength is, that's actually doing the same thing when you have negative emotions, negative thoughts and feelings, as when you have positive emotions and feelings. Because if you're not doing that, you're letting the mental side of you control you. So that is actually for you to see, when I'm on my A game, I feel great, I think great, I do this in my actions and behaviors. But this is exactly what you need to do when you're pressured in your mental state. And if you're not doing that, you need to incorporate these positive actions when you have emotional negative experiences. And for me, it's just to say that this is how we are as a human being. We are emotionally driven, and that's just something you need to learn. Because if you don't do it, you're going to deviate from your game plan, and you're going to start doing something else, because you forget what we rationally decided to do when I'm behind and when I'm not doing my best. And that's why you need a game plan to say, this is how I'm going to refocus. This is how I'm going to do. Doesn't matter if we get if we're behind or if we're leading the game, but this is exactly my kind of game plan. And game plan should just be concrete, simple, and realistic actions you can do. It shouldn't be something like something crazy. I need to dribble one of the attackers because then I'm in the game again, I feel motivated. It's not to say that you need to, if you're not a very communicating guy, it's not to say that you need to raise your voice even more and have a pitch talk for the team before the game, because it's not up to you. It's not realistic and easy for you to do it. It should just be small, realistic, simple tasks that you can do, because then you put your focus there, and it is for the better of your performance.
Yeah, and to add to that, and I'm sure you agree, it has to be like small, realistic goals that are in your control, right? Not something that you can control. Like, I have to catch 10 balls from crosses, but I have to be dominant in the crosses.
Yeah, it could surely be that. And I think about the pregame, dominant in the crosses.
Yeah, just
like warming up.
Yeah, both warming up, but also you can control if you win the header, if you could say that, but win the ball, but you can control how you go up to the duel against the striker.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So don't focus on the result of what you're doing. Focus on doing the right thing. And if being dominant in an action is being on your toes and really just hitting it 100%, that is what you aim for. And you're not going to win all the balls and all the duels that you have, but you still did the right thing. And that is where your focus needs to be. Even though if you lose a ball like that, maybe concede a goal or a corner kick right there, you're going to want to beat yourself up, but you still did the right thing. And that is exactly what you need to do. So focus on the things that you can control and make sense in your position.
And when we sit here and talk about a lot about emotions, because obviously as human beings we have emotions and feelings and stuff like that. It's kind of a cliche, but it came to my mind that we've all heard the talk about having butterflies in the stomach before a game, and I've heard someone saying that if you don't have butterflies before a game, you don't enjoy playing, or you don't enjoy the upcoming game that you're going to play. And it just came to mind that within the last couple of years, I've always been kind of nervous or just excited for a game. But when I was younger, at some point, training 4 to 5 times a week and games in the weekends, I wasn't excited. I didn't have butterflies before the games. And I was like talking with my parents about maybe quitting playing football, soccer, because I didn't have the nervousness. I didn't have the butterflies in the stomach before a game. So maybe we can talk a little bit about, I think we've all been through this period in our life with our sports, especially for us who's been playing football since we were like very small until we are adults. It's usual that we will have these kind of periods where we get tired of it and we run tired within it. But I was just wondering, where does these thoughts and feelings come from?
Yeah. So where does the thoughts and feelings come from? Yeah, well, it of course comes from you and the nervous system and the brain, and maybe also the subconscious mind, but it comes individually. Of course, it makes sense, but it comes from the experiences that you had with conceding a goal. Did you feel like, okay, I really need to make a lot of effort right now and I feel extremely motivated? If you had that induced feeling in you, it's probably also the same thing is going to happen in 5 years, because it's still the same situation. If you feel very ashamed and very small as a person because you did a mistake or you said something wrong, and then you have this feeling coming to you, it's always being wired in you. The many times you do it, it's also the same as learning to ride a bike or doing an exercise, what is it called, like a motor skill. The more times you perform it, the more ingrained it is in you. And every time you make a mistake, you start beating yourself up. Well, 100% sure you're going to do the same thing in 2 years. So you actually make it in yourself. It is up to you to make a new reality and a new perception, and also some not new emotional states, because it's uncontrollable. But if you do that rightly, it can be a byproduct of doing the right thing, and then you won't have these negative and bad emotions in the same degree as you had before.